Hello and welcome to the inflation and savings myth. Before we begin, I want to play a little game. So question number one, if you wanted to retire on £2,000 per month, how big does your pension pot need to be? The answer is C, £500,000, £500,000. That's a pension contribution of £1,000 per month for 40 years. As you can see, that's grossly unachievable for over 90% of the UK population. So you really do need to think forward for your retirement. And question number two is, what is the current real inflation rate? It's higher than you think. It's D, it's 10%. That's real inflation rate, not nominal. Nominal inflation is what the government portrays. And this leads us to the first thing I'm going to talk about, and that's inflation. This is something most people don't really understand, and as a result, they blindly accept the government's BS financial stats and have no idea of how bad it's really hurting them. The official inflation rate is 1.5% at the moment, and this is just absurd. If you take pretty much anything you consume in your life, you'll see that it's bonkers. Take Snickers bars, for instance. 10 years ago, they were on average 30p each. Now they're at the very least 60p. That's at least a 100% price increase in just a decade. Plus, I'm forever spending 80 to 90p for them in petrol stations. And to make things worse, most Chocky bars are at least 7.2% smaller these days. And this shocking stat applies to everything in your life, from Fairy liquid bottles, toothpaste, and even packets of crisps. They're half empty these days. So, first of all, you need to understand how inflation is actually calculated. And what they do is they take a metaphorical basket of goods that we use on a daily basis, like cars, TVs, groceries, etc. Not Kristen Stewart. That would be nice. And what they do is they plot the differences in price from today compared to last year, etc., etc. So originally, rent and mortgages used to be in the basket, but when Thatcher and Reagan launched the "everyone must own his own home" campaign, it sparked a house price rise, which meant that this basket of goods was getting more and more expensive, and real inflation was rocketing. So they removed houses from the basket to keep their inflation figures low. Now, the pound has lost over 97% of its value in the last 90 years, and 2/3 of that in the last 40 years. This is all down to money printing, and the reason the government doesn't want inflation stats to be high is because it's the biggest indicator to the public that they're devaluing the pound and flushing it down the loo. The moment they print a new pound, it instantly devalues every other pound in existence. So what they do with their inflation figures is cheat. They base it on the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, but I call it the CP lie, because the moment something gets too pricey, they remove it, just like they did with houses. So, for instance, if the price of cod fish fingers went crazy, they just replace it with crab sticks or something. So the next time someone tries to tell you that inflation is low at the moment, just ask them to Google prices for pretty much everything, and you'll see that commodities are outpacing, or in fact normal living costs are just outpacing the bogus inflation figures, and also your savings. Because of this currency dilution, the purchasing power of your savings nest egg is dwindling and won't buy you half as much as you think it will, which is why cash is not king. Cash is trash. So much so that I'll happily go on record and say that if you're a saver and you're putting your money every month into a cash ISA, a savings account, or premium bonds, you are single-handedly ruining your family's financial future and will never become rich, and will most likely retire on less than £2,000 per month. The first reason is due to inflation. We now know that real inflation is around 10% and is set to increase. So why would you ever settle for anything less than 12 to 15%? Personally, unless an investment is making me 20%, I'm not interested. And please don't think that higher returns equals higher risk. That sentiment is so incorrect on so many levels. But going back to the point, here's a little table to illustrate what I'm saying. If you started with £10,000 lump sum and saved £250 per month and didn't invest it, and you're just a bog standard saver, after 30 years you just have 100 grand to live off. You may think that's a lot, but assuming you're going to live for another 20 years on that pot, that's just £417 per month. And that's pretty horrible, to be honest, if you spent the whole of your life saving money up just to retire on £417 a month. But if you did the same thing and put your money to work so it made just 10% per year, which is not hard by the way, you'd end up with £761,000. That's over £3 grand a month. That's far, far nicer to live off. But if you manage 20%, this is the silly number that the beauty of compounding interest will deliver you. £9.47 million. That's over £39,000 per month. I think we can all live on that pretty easily. So the big point I'm trying to make today is that no matter who you are or what you do, you 100% need to become an investor, not a saver. Personal investing is a life skill, not a skill for hire. And with the right information, education and training, you'll realize that it's actually really easy. And even if you want to take a laid back approach, it'll only take a few minutes per month. Now the key here is to make sure all of this is completely tax-free, and also that you get the right information, education and training basically. So I hope that's helped, and I will see you soon. Cheers. Bye bye.